Brandon Boudreaux, thank you so much for making the time following a long 6 years, to say the least. Nearly 6 years ago, though, your life was about to change. June 25th, 2019, really the beginning of the end for that marriage. But I want you to describe the Brandon Boudreaux from that time, from that era.
I think I've always kind of been the same me, for me, my life is about my family. So that person and this person wants to be the best dad he can be, like the best husband you can be, and then you want to provide, really, really basic things. That's what's important to me.
Yeah, and I hear that from people. You haven't really changed. Even with so many things that could have changed you and have impacted you, you have tried to remain true to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, some stuff changes you, right? Like you can't change, you don't remain completely the same, but I think for me in this process, the thing that mattered the most was just to try to continue to be the same. I had the same goals at the end, which was to be a good father, to try to honor the promises that I made to God, to be that person. I just wanted to stay focused on that. That was my goal through the process.
Here we are, June 13th, 2025. This is the first day you wake up this morning with this murder conspiracy case behind you, and you have justice. How are you feeling?
I woke up and I went to work. For me, the goal is to go back to what I was talking about: being a good dad, hopefully being a good husband, hopefully being a good brother, a good son. Those things that I think most everybody wants to be. That's when I woke up today. That got to be the focus, and hopefully for most of the rest of my life, that gets to be the focus. That's what I prefer. That's where I find joy.
You and others put Lori Daybell in prison. You helped present a case to convict her in 3 murder trials. What was it like facing off with her in court as she questioned your story?
Uncomfortable, I don't know that I have the right words for that. Your heart races, you try to be calm. I just tried to remember that why I was doing it, that it was the right thing to be doing at that time, and I knew that, and that was what I had to do to get to the end of the process, through due process, right? To get to the point where I could have a jury weigh all the evidence and tell me whether or not what I felt was what they saw.
Did you feel any anger during the cross-examination?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you feel all of those feelings that you would imagine you feel, and then it's just trying to remember to breathe and to answer the question and to focus on what matters most, So there's the stimulus. It's that idea of don't react, but try to act independently. Try to answer the question, be honest, have integrity, and move forward. Just wait for the next one until you finish the process.
Lori mentioned your kids. I mean, she had talked about how she had watched her kids. She was naming them in court. I mean, clearly she was trying to show that she had some good character, and we saw multiple objections. Were you surprised at some of the questions?
After what I went through, I don't think anything was going to surprise me. That's not to just expect the unexpected. That doesn't, even though that, it doesn't change being in a moment of something, and yeah, it can definitely feel a little overwhelming, or you still have all the anger you talk about, all those kind of feelings will come. You just have to try not to focus on them or dwell on them.
Did some of her questions just not make any sense to you?
Yeah, so that's why I asked to just clarify. I just wanted to understand what she was trying to ask so I could try to answer it honestly.
What were you doing when you learned that a verdict had been reached in about 15 minutes?
We just got to the courthouse and we were just waiting. So I was just sitting in a room with my beautiful wife and my family and friends, and we're just waiting, just like everybody else. Maybe a little more nervous. I don't know how nervous everybody else feels. But I felt pretty nervous. So
that had to be a good sign, though, when you realize I just got here. They have a verdict. Like, it's happening in less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, I don't. For me at least, every time you go through that process, each of these cases, I just have a lot of anxiety while you wait. Even though I've always, since the beginning, you felt like what happened and feel pretty confident that everybody will share the story and it'll get it right. It's still scary, like you don't have any control. And when you don't have control, you feel, nervous is a normal feeling.
When you heard the word guilty, what came over you?
Relief, like gratitude, I think would be the words that I'd use. Grateful that all those people invested that time. I mean, not just my case, in each of those cases, like all those meant the world to me. It's a lot for those people to carry. They have to think about all that, and then they have to weigh that, and that has to be on their conscience too for, the rest of their lives. So gratitude that they would submit to the process and really do their best to be honest and think through it and give, real thought and meaning to it, so that it's kind of like they're all taking that on too, for that I have a lot of gratitude. That's a lot of people who didn't have to, over 4 different trials, that chose to sit through, hear the information, and help give a little bit of justice to people that were victims of some terrible things.
And we know on paper this is still an open investigation by Gilbert PD, and there are multiple alleged co-conspirators, including your ex-wife. And I know that's a specific topic that you can't get into right now due to the pending investigation. But Trina K's words, she didn't hold back to the jury. Did her arguments give you some hope that there's accountability for all, that's still on the table?
I'm not in charge of any of that. So my best answer is, when crimes are committed, I hope that people who commit them have accountability for their own good too. It's good for people to be able to go through a process of healing, and part of healing, if you committed the crime, is you have to acknowledge it and you have to make amends. You have to change, And so it's really not my job, and I'm grateful for that there's someone else who decides. There's police who do investigating, and they pass it over to a prosecutor who decides if that's something that they feel like they have enough evidence that they can go through that process with. And that's a good place to not have the power in as a victim, because I'm not unbiased. Like when you go through something hard, you're not unbiased.
You talked about giving a voice, on behalf of people who couldn't provide a voice, the victims that are no longer here, and you're able to, tell your story on the stand. And I assume you feel empowered right now getting justice, but you rewind back to 2019, 2020. What is it like knowing someone is trying to kill you?
I feel anxious, paranoid. I'm probably a lot of the feelings you might think you might feel, or how I felt. I can't speak for anyone else who's gone through something like that, but for me, you just don't feel safe. You just go through life for a period of time feeling unsafe all the time.
Do you carry any sort of PTSD from that day?
Yeah, I'm probably, you probably always do. The part of the human experience, it's hard to know what you are and aren't carrying, because you mostly we're just present to what's happening for us right now, and it's really hard to remember how you felt. It's really hard to remember exactly how I felt 6 years ago, before I ever had that experience, before I ever went through some of these things. So my focus is to try to heal the best I can, and to try to be the best I can for my family, So I guess that's the best way to answer that.
And in this recovery, you're working on a book right now. Tell me about that focus in the book.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if I'll ever release it to the public or if it'll get there, but I am in the process. I work with someone who helps me write it, and maybe it's therapeutic, but for me the focus of the book is my children. Like one day they're gonna be old enough where it's finally time for them to kind of examine and look at what all these things that happened, so that they can try to understand for themselves. And when that time comes, I don't want to have to try to remember back to all those years ago what happened. So I've tried to really document thoroughly what happened, and hopefully I can put something together for them so that they can hear my side of it and see the choices I made. And I don't know how they'll feel about it. That's kind of their job to figure out and go through those emotions, but hopefully at least I can give them all the content in a way that they can understand it. And in the process of sharing that with other people maybe helps them heal or helps them in some way, then that's something I'm open to doing. I don't know how it'll end up.
Well, this is such a twisted timeline. I mean, we're coming off a few days since the 5-year anniversary of authorities discovering the remains of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. You had to identify J.J. I know how hard that was, but could you explain how that process came about and you had to step up?
So I had just gotten married, and we were about to fly out for our honeymoon, and we were in Salt Lake. And just woke up that morning and I looked at my wife and I just said, would you be open to going up to Rexburg today? Because I had seen some people had been putting stuff over by the fence where they found the kids, and I wanted to go put JJ loved suitcases. So I wanted to go he was just infatuated with them. So I wanted to go put a little suitcase up there for him. And Tylee had a Taco Bell order she always ordered, so I wanted to go put a little Taco Bell up for her. And so that was kind of my intent when I woke up, was I felt like I should go up there, so I was going to make a long drive, and she was super supportive, my wife was, and so I thought we'll go just drop that off before we fly out later that day. And then got a call from Larry and Kay, and Larry was not feeling well, and he was telling me that someone needed to identify JJ. And when I got there to go talk to him about it, he couldn't even get out of bed. It was just, I could just see the pain all over his face, and I couldn't make him do that, so I just told him I would do it. I just said, I know him. I know that little boy, and I just said I can do it. So I went and I did it.
That has to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life.
I mean, some things are just really uncomfortable, and that's not a memory that I don't ever want to remember him like that. So I choose not to. I try not to think a lot about it or dwell in it. That's just not a place that I want my mind to go.
And we've talked about this before as far as accountability. Never have we seen Lori or Chad Daybell show any remorse for what they've done. And we talk about the factors of whether money or religion, but is it this believed higher purpose that they think they have that blinds them from what they've done?
I try not to think too much about any of it as far as that stuff goes, because I don't know that I'm ever going to find real meaning, and I don't think that they deserve a lot of my thoughts other than to protect future people. They deserve to spend the rest of their lives dealing with the consequences that they have, and if they do ever find that space, I hope they can figure out a way to try to start making amends to all the terrible decisions that they made.
What was it like for you to watch Lieutenant Ray Hermosillo, Detective Ryan Pillar take the stand and really serve all of the evidence on a platter for the jury?
Just felt gratitude for the work that they put in. Nobody knows how many hours those guys put in to get to that little bit of time that they spend on the stand. They don't get a lot of gratitude when you work in that line of work anymore, and so I felt a lot of gratitude to them for the hours that they put in and the effort that they put in, and that they were thorough and that they did a good job so that everyone could see all the things that happened.
Lori chose not to cross-examine Hermosillo. Was that going through your mind, like, why would she not go up there and defend herself, or at least try to poke holes in his testimony? Was it a good sign that she did it on your behalf?
The good thing is I'm not an attorney, so I can't tell you. It seemed to work out for this situation. That's my thought.
Are you glad that she represented herself in court rather than trusting a legitimate public defender?
Like I said, it worked out. So, from that standpoint, I would have preferred not to have been questioned by her, but I'm grateful it worked out.
Of course. How much credit does Charles Vallow deserve for the justice that has been served for everyone?
All of it.
All of it.
He tried to get us all the information much earlier, and each of us had different reasons why we weren't helping him more, and he lost everything. So all of it.
Do you remember the last conversation you had with him before he was murdered?
I do.
What was that like?
It was personal. It was, he's a good man. I'll say that.
Your wife Jenny commented yesterday outside the courthouse that she's just grateful for you, being here, and she's been by your side every day in the courtroom. How did you even explain this backstory to her, and how quickly did she understand not to hold this against you, and now you guys are here married for years?
She's the biggest blessing that God's given me. I can't speak for her how she decided, but she married me knowing that these things were going on, and chose me, and continues to choose me, and for that I'll have gratitude for the rest of eternity.
You did so much, not just to protect yourself, but protect your kids when this was all going on. How are they doing now, getting older, and as they learn more about you, just what is that like?
I try to keep this out of the limelight for my kids. I did this because most people don't know this, but you're the first person who saw when all this was going on, and you reached out and tried to help us when we were really worried, to get it up into a place where people heard about it, because when this first broke, we were still hopeful that maybe there was some chance the kids could be found. And so for me, with my kids, my hope is that they just get to know me, like I said, as a dad, as seeing me in my different family roles and in that part of life. And I hope this is something they discover or talk a lot about later. I try not to make it something that's in their life right now, because I don't think that they need that. They just want them to feel like normal kids, just like everybody else.
I'm sure they're going to look up to you a lot when they really get the whole story and they're old enough to understand and see what you went through. I think they already probably love and respect you so much, but that is going to be something where they, that's your legacy of, bravery that they take with them as they get older. But going back to Charles, someone that also really fought to sound the alarm, did you already know something was wrong when he was shot and killed? And in your head, were you just questioning, this doesn't seem right, something happened that is criminal?
Yeah, I didn't have as much evidence as other people had, but yeah, you don't see that. Everybody who's seen the facts, all of us had little parts of it back then, but it just didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense that if you knew Charles, you knew he would never hurt Lori, no matter what. He would never hurt Tylee. That man was he was as good as they came. He spent his whole life, literally his whole life, taking care of other people, working hard and being a man who tried to provide. And the man that I knew for the time that I knew, he tried really hard to be a good Christian man and follow Christ. And so, for a lot of us, it just didn't make any sense. We couldn't believe at all that the story that was being told about him doing the things that they said he was doing. So, we didn't have the evidence that police had. We didn't have you don't get a lot of that information. They can't share with you, because even if you're close to the story, they have to keep integrity for investigation. So, for us, I think that's my answer, is anybody who hears and starts to look into things can feel right away that something's wrong with it. And he deserves to be remembered that way, not the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, initially it sounds crazy to anybody, whether you're police or not. You two were labeled dark spirits. I mean, how did you grasp being called that, and how confusing was it?
Um, I spent my time trying to focus on my kids and trying to avoid it. And then when it couldn't be avoided, I tried to do my best to follow the law, right? And just understand what the rules said I could do and couldn't do. And then I did my best to follow those things and use the tools that we have as a society to keep me and my kids and us safe. Yeah, that's what I tried to do.
You head into this Father's Day weekend with a big weight off your shoulders. I could see that. You have justice, maybe some closure before sentencing. How differently do you look at life these days?
I still think I look at the same. I'm grateful that we have a society that we live in and a place we live in where we have some tools that if you don't want to do evil or terrible things, you have a way to get some safety and some protection. And even though it may not be perfect, at least we have that. Like that, there's a lot of places that don't have a system like that where they can get some of that closure and some of that. And I have the same goals I had when I woke up October 1st, to be a good dad, to love my kids, to raise them to be good citizens and to find joy in their lives, and to try to be a good husband, to try to be a good son, and each of those roles that you have in life, and try to go work hard and earn money in an honest way. So that's just my goal. That's what I want to be.
You definitely feel that relief and you're ready to start this new chapter. What's your message to everyone who has been rooting you on and waiting for this final trial to conclude with justice?
Just thank you. Go support Colby. He could use the support. He's a good man. He's trying to figure his life out, and be a big fan of his. He's a good man.
Everyone involved and affected, yeah, you guys have all united and bonded.
Yeah, good point. Support Kay. Support all the people that you've fallen in love with. Find out ways you can support them and go support them. Influence them to keep doing good in the world. That's my message. Keep doing good. Don't let this be something that is the negative that already happened. Let's make it into a positive.